Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Love and Laser Tag Podcast. Today we have Mischief,
the Fear Turkey,
Feeder,
Hot Tamales,
Sergeant Tucker.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about what happened after we came back from East Coast Tournament, as well as our topic for today will be, drum roll please. Wow, you all actually drum rolled. I'm so happy. Constructing your team. So, tonight we got some really ragey games. Let's talk about them.
You want to know what?
Yes, actually he does.
I want to know what.
I can't.
Tell me about the past couple hours. Tell me about your childhood that was the past couple hours.
You know what? It was bad.
I had to remember
It was
to look
really
down
bad.
again because Jarrett is there, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to look down for short people now.
Yeah. There was a lot of people in my way a lot of the times, and that's what caused me to die a lot of the time, because I couldn't run fast enough because people were in my way, because they were very big games. And I also got followed on the last game for my last life by Mason, and while he was running down the hallway, he said, "I'm not targeting," multiple times. And then when he gets to me, he shot me and he kills me. And let's just say I was tilted about 180 degrees, and it was not. I didn't like that very much.
So tonight we started our tryouts for West Coast Tournament. We have a solid A and B team lined up. It's looking like lots of competition with potentially a C team or a Merc team forming as well.
I'm merking. I don't want to play for Loveland anymore.
Can I not?
Loveland
So
team
the
is
A
Merc team.
is the Merc team.
So we're going to
That's
make a Merc
literally what I
team
just said.
using all Loveland players, and then we'll call it Loveland M.
Got punched in the eye.
I got punched
didn't
in the
tell us
mouth
about
in the
that.
last
I
game.
almost fell over.
I got popped in the eye and shoved into a wall.
By who?
I literally
I can't-
almost fell
the
over
only
the
person
first turn
who could have
of
done
blue
that would
ramp,
be Bromley.
and then I ran into blue ramp wall, and it was bad.
The irony of that is Bromley accidentally
Bromley.
punched me in the face, so you know.
See, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I just walked slowly around the arena and nothing happened.
I think there's a Bromley conspiracy
You
going
know what?
on
No one
right now.
cares.
Well, I was
okay?
on his team, so you know.
I ran up blue ramp and I got popped in the eye with a phaser. And then I got shoved into a wall and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore.
Melee.
Happy last game.
At Baden at East Coast.
Yeah, pretty much, actually.
Yeah, we all got pretty salty tonight. It wasn't very good for really anyone. It kind of switched off the butt kicking. Kind of switched off of teams. One team would get really badly beaten, and then the other team would get really badly beaten. And I don't know.
Well,
It was just.
Let's talk about the tryouts, because there were some pretty close games there.
Yeah, that's true.
Josiah's like, no.
Aside from Loki not logging heavy, there were really not very many close tryout games.
Except for
At
when
Loki.
Jarrett forgot his bases and made us lose. I mean, we still wouldn't have won, but it would have been a lot closer.
Just saying, there are a lot of penalties.
Yeah, true.
And
I didn't get penalized. Huh.
Considering the fact that there are penalties being called and there's only 2 refs maximum, like, guys, bliss.
Yeah, I remember the one time that I remember penalizing Mischief is when I was in the catacombs and I was on blue side and I was a medic and I had 1 life left, and I ended up surviving only because of the fact that I did not show my shoulder just barely enough for it to be legal. And so I was in the cubby where the medic is always, and then I think it was Sergeant Tucker who was my ammo, and he gets 1 into Mischief, and then I think you had 1 left, and you were coming in and I had 1 life left, and I ended up shooting you for it, but I did not completely show my shoulder, so yeah, it was scary though.
So our first game.
This is the game that's on camera right now as we're talking.
And that one also needed a +1 on Dylan, I remember.
Yeah, he had an unassessed. So this game was after kind of a bloodbath. We were testing some specific things out involving teamwork and how people respond to good situations versus bad situations. In terms of bad situations, the people that we put on green team were doing really well as far as like emotionally and like trying to keep communicating with each other. There were people still talking at least. The team that was winning, however, kind of just like had this weird gap where they kind of just like broke off and stopped calling out specific places, and they were just kind of like yelling about how they're here and they're on me kind of thing, which isn't descriptive. And that was a bit of an issue, but we had some cheaters, I guess. Dylan had an unassessed, but otherwise there were 2 on Jarrett and 1 on Mimosaurus for a shoulder. Jarrett's not really participating though, I don't think so.
Yeah, he doesn't play by the rules. Jared follows his own rules.
I remember
Jared don't
something
care.
that shouldn't have happened during that game when I was green team heavy. When our medic Seth died, I remember distinctly just looking at Loki, our commander, and being like, "Hey, let's take 3rd floor." And it shouldn't have worked, but it did. And I mean, we were fine until the entire enemy team came back on us, but that shouldn't have worked in the first place.
By the way, Seth is the enemy ammo in that game.
Yeah.
Poe was your medic.
Oh, yeah, Poe. When Poe died, when our medic died, and we were just like, "Hey, let's take 3rd floor." And
I was watching that.
It should not have worked, but it did for a little while.
There were some players getting really frustrated with things that they shouldn't have been getting frustrated about. For example, there was a situation on 3rd floor where Troy was literally like mowing everyone down. He ran out of shots. He turned around and started missiling. And instead of trying to either dodge the missile or run away, the person he was missiling was literally just standing there and yelling about not coming up. And then he ran away after getting missiled. So, like, it's just giving away free stuff because you're tilted is...
That person did that a lot tonight.
It was really funny to watch, though, because I was in the cubby and I didn't get shot or missiled.
Joe, your sass is at an 11, and I need it down to about a 2.
Yeah,
I like your sass, Joe. I think you should have more of it.
There you go, optimism.
I'm trying to control it. I'm still emotionally unstable, so you know.
I'm pretty angry, too. Don't worry.
Angsty teams.
Yeah.
Joe, it's
Add some
awesome.
pepper to
Don't
that
stop. Okay, then there was games afterwards.
Stop.
When we finally
See,
started
we
participating.
had...
There were games after the first game?
Yeah, it was pretty great.
What?
I'm looking at the scoreboard.
Ooh.
Wasn't
Ooh.
that the one where you guys had
Oh.
me step in and help out the defense team, and we actually
That was
won?
one of my good games where I...
That was a really close one.
That was...
You were Ammo Joe with Seth Medic,
And then
and Feel Good is Heavy.
oh,
Oh, that's the one where Caleb got
No,
like
Feel
all
Good
the
is
missiles
ammo.
off. Feel Good is Heavy here.
Yeah,
Really?
that's where...
Holy
So,
Oh, yeah, you're right. Never mind.
this game there was a unassessed penalty because I thought it would change the outcome of the game. Dr. Feelgood was getting repeatedly missiled because he was just getting angry, I guess, and he was forgetting that he was still in the game. But as far as that goes, they still won. Like, Mimosaurus was doing a lot of work. There was a lot of things being done by just sheer teamwork, and they were really working together well on red side. Their defense wasn't really a defense. They were trying to like have a static heavy on red side and then resupply from big box, which is our red cubby on 2nd. And this created an interesting situation where the heavy couldn't really be caught out by the commander and have the resupplies be punished. At the same time, it made it so the resupplies were a little extra slow. Like, it tacked on an extra like half second because people had to stand up to shoot. So it was an interesting strategy, to say the least. Not easily abused. If green team got their bases, though, I think they would have won, right?
I mean, some of us got our
Almost.
bases.
But
Oh.
Seth also forgot his bases.
Who was Cobra?
They were also cheating scum.
Oh.
So, I gotta say, I was
I
impressed with
mean-
John that game. He was keeping up with Caleb as commander. That really shows a lot of improvement on his part.
Yeah. You got that last nuke right at the last second too. That's why it's on the scoreboard, by the way.
And it was basically the green team got shoved downstairs right away, and Caleb was 1v5ing everybody with, I believe it was Jarrett. And that's pretty much how he got all of his points. But John would go downstairs and wreak havoc on Troy, who was playing heavy. And both heavies scored about the same, so it wasn't too much of a differential. But they both scored 10k, he and Caleb. Almost got his 4th nuke.
I think I did good as ammo in that game. That was one of my highest scoring games of the night in terms of numbers. But I also got both of my bases, and
You tagged 7 people.
Probably more than that because you have to subtract lives.
I'm just trolling her because she only scored 700 points without bases.
Well, speaking of that, I think there was a game Joe played ammo and he got like 5k.
Yeah,
that's
that
the
was
very
the
next
next
game.
one.
Very next game,
The
Joe
very
gets
next
5k
game,
as
I got.
ammo.
So to be fair on this one, I got really tilty because I watched most of my team rip itself apart, and then they all pretty much wound up dying. So I found Feeder upstairs, and I found another one. I think our other 3-shot was still alive. So my commander and my heavy were both upstairs, and I was like,
Jarrett.
"We're taking this." And Fear Turkey was playing commander against us that game, and he came up right behind me, and he just had no shots to defend. So I put 3 into him really quick, and then I hear him kind of being like, "Okay, guys, I really need to get some shots. I need you guys to do something." And I think at that moment, Son, who is Jarrett,
Yeah.
dropped a nuke and killed the ammo. And so Fear Turkey at that point no longer had shots, and Feeder just kind of got into Funbox and just went off on them. And every time he'd get one into him, I would just reset. And so we just had this chain of Feeder was just never losing lives.
Peter, I swear you were at 1 life in the fun box, and then Sun nuked, and you decided to just go over there and kill everybody anyway. And you were
Yeah,
fighting
I
for
was
like 40 seconds. You were like
for
running
like
around
the last,
resetting
probably
people.
2 or 3 minutes of that game, I was at 1 or 2 lives. And I was just kind of like, Joe will save me.
I couldn't really help you there. I was dealing with Caleb at that point.
And like the last, and
not
you can
even
see
Caleb,
on the
just,
scoreboard on like the last couple seconds, John found me and killed me.
You were
Dealing
dealing with him for a
Not
while.
what Caleb meant.
with me and my 0 shots and 0
It's
missiles.
either Poe or Loki. But also, to be fair, it needs to be noted, that was the game that Red Team had no heavy.
Yeah. So that was supposed to be like a test game to really test the green team's defense, which was Eric, Joe, and Seth. But Red Team didn't sign in their heavy, they signed in as a scout, which made it a lot more fair in the end.
And to be fair, the green team came back from quite a deficit.
And the
We-
only
No, it was still really
Yeah, we
impressive
probably
watching it.
shouldn't have won that game, but
and I think the score difference between him being a scout and a heavy, I think somebody said it was like 1,000 points.
You guys won because of bases.
Pretty much, yeah.
We
You're
missed.
just sore because you lost.
We missed 4 bases. You guys missed 2. And you guys were up by 1,000.
So what was the next one?
1,017.
Someone's salty.
Alright.
Then
I'm not salty because of
So
that
then
game.
I got told
Then
to
we
step out,
really-
so that way, yeah.
Then we really tested them and
That
put
way,
in
'cause-
Josiah as the 3 shot.
And,
Fear Turkey was annoyed, so he pulled Mischief off of
Hey.
reffing, put me off of ammo on defense, and put me on reffing, and went, we're just going to annihilate them, and yeah.
So
Yeah, and
that's not. You can say that, but the purpose of that game was to put specific people in perilous situations so that they would be forced to adapt. And what ended up happening is they didn't adapt. They started panicking, and then they just got destroyed.
I
As
gotta
someone-
say one thing. It's that you didn't give them a very fair test. And then not only were they really struggling, but then you triple nuked. I'm not sure what you wanted them to gain out of that.
yeah, as someone on green team, I think I was probably like one of the 2 people on the team at the end of the game who wasn't tilted to all hell.
So
And then another thing was, it was really funny because while I was reffing, I hear Mischief over from Funbox go, Fear Turkey, drop your nuke! And I see him walking up the blue ramp, and he walks up to his resupply and he goes, I don't have one. And Mischief goes, what do you mean you don't have one? And Fear Turkey's just like, they've just been friendly firing one another. I don't understand. I don't have any nukes.
yeah, that was
The
rough.
ultimate
I've
strategy.
never
Friendly
heard
fire
you
each other
say
so
that
the
in my
commander
life.
can't get nukes.
Huh?
I've never heard you say that in my life.
don't have a
I don't
nuke.
have a nuke.
No, that was
I was
really
like, what?
that was really toxic because like I went in to try and tag them like 3 times and they would just like shoot each other and disperse and I was like, why?
That's one
Why
way
are you
to
like
adapt.
this?
The ultimate defensive strategy.
You only got 8k, so I guess it kind of works.
Well, so I didn't triple nuke until after they nuked and then pushed up. So when I nuked,
I was watching. They were all at the bottom of red.
There were a lot up there, I saw.
It wasn't an aggressive nuke. They were pushing up blue side. I watched John nuke and then run upstairs, and so I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'll just hide in blue base.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dropped 3, walked around, and found a few of them, but at that point the game was already pretty much over. But, like, it just... I think that for tryout games, we need to make sure that we're only putting 6 people on each team.
Yeah, that wasn't really a real game.
Because when you have the 7 people games, it puts like twice as much stress on the resupplies because everybody needs it at once, and it's just really unbalanced.
Yeah.
Because your 3 shots have to fire more shots, and they're running out faster.
And ultimately, your commander gets more special points. But
and that was one of my better games. I think I was resubbing with Loki, and I think we did a pretty good job resubbing. That was also the game that you penalized him. that was funny to watch.
Follow too. So he tags Sun, who's in Funbox, and Sun runs all the way around, and he goes into what we're calling the trench now, I guess. And I watched Loki go all the way from Funbox, come around, and point at him and fire once. And I look at him and I go, "What are you doing?" And I shoot him.
It was funny. It was really funny
and
to
he was
watch.
like, "What did I do?" I was like, "Troy, that's like 20 feet."
That was really funny to watch. I was resubbing and I stayed in the blue cubby on 3rd floor, and I just watched Loki just completely trail him, and I'm just like, should I follow him or not? Because I'm the medic, so I should probably stay put. So I just kind of stayed put and watched it happen, and it was pretty entertaining.
So is that the next one?
Oh, and a quick last thing on that game. I was the medic for green team, and I'm pretty sure I was dead before Josiah triple nuked. Just to give you an idea of how quickly he murdered me.
You got shot by your own team, dude. I scored 8,000
I mean, true,
points.
but still, I was dead before the triple nuke.
Rip.
Oh, there was a fun game where John and Caleb went 3-shot and completely annihilated
Lol.
us.
Yeah.
I bet it was fun being on that
Playing
team.
that one.
I bet it was lots of fun.
Who was my ammo in that game? I can't see.
Me.
Oh
Tucker.
yeah, that was that one game.
That was the screamy game. I
That was
remember
the-
that.
Yeah, I was.
That's when the rage truly started.
Yeah, I was squatting down and I was like
That was the turtle
resubbing.
game.
I was resubbing with Sergeant Tucker, and I would double and then I would shoot him. And once I turned too fast and I fell right on my back, and I was just like, all right.
This is my
Okay.
life now.
So to be fair, I wasn't attempting to scream at you. It was more of I was already at that volume, so I was trying to get you to go around the corner. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was just like, we're getting pushed out. Go around the corner really fast, and then like they'd get pushed out and be like, all right, let's go back.
Yeah, and one of the things was there was a lot of people in my way in that game when I would try to go somewhere, so that I had to like go around people. And the fun fact about that is I didn't actually run into anybody tonight, but I ran into a lot of walls instead. But like also the other thing was like I was getting yelled at more by Slaughtermelon than I was by you. And I was just like, all right, okay, I'll just resub and do my best, I guess, because I can't really do anything more than that. So I'm just gonna do my best and try to handle with the situation, try to adapt to the situation, and that's what I did. So
There were a lot of really negative things that were going on that game for our team.
I was the only person that didn't really get really
away,
really
Caleb
tilted.
just kind of ran over to Funbox and shot down Dylan, and then shot down the entire rest of our team. We were all immediately on the switchback, just like cramming in there.
It's so. What
I wasn't
I've
even there.
Kind of been taking
Like,
away from tonight. It feels like that first heavy trade is what determines the game for a lot of our players, which is kind of frustrating to see because there's a point where like you can be like, okay, we can turn this, but like the first game I watched where I don't think we recorded it because it was a for funsies practice game. But what happened was Mimosaurus was in essence playing heavy, and he got like all of them down, and it felt like they just tilted. And then that game, it felt like Slaughtermelon got them all down, and then they all just kind of tilted, and it was so hard for them to recover.
There was a lot of tilting in
Hey
that game.
Joe,
What?
you interrupted the what's a good word for this? The living daylights out of Josiah.
That's not why I was frustrated. I was really frustrated because I was thinking about that game.
As a funny note on that game, I accidentally scanned my arcade card instead of my normal card.
So that's why there's no name.
So where my name's supposed to be, there's just a blank spot. So I'm just simply 7
You
as
are.
the medic. There is simply no name there. Like usually, either it doesn't let you scan or it puts an error code where your name's supposed to be. This time it worked, but it just didn't give me a name. It's like you're just a blank spot now.
You're just 7.
This was
I'm just 7.
the main reason this was a really rough game. Has a lot to do with disorganization on the second floor. For some reason, when you get pushed out of Funbox, people are like, "Oh, well, they got Funbox, better run away," and then they run into second floor and just get destroyed by Crossfire. At which point, I ran up, I met up with Luke. He was like, "Hey, we lost third." I was like, "I've been gone for 15 seconds." And then it was just kind of a mess from there.
Here's the reason that Caleb does really well on heavy sometimes, is because unless you or I are playing heavy and know to intercept his cannonball into Funbox, I don't think Dylan knew to intercept it, and he just got shot down, and Caleb was able to shoot down like 5 other people as a consequence. He's really good against like people who don't know what to do against him. And he just sent our entire team into a panic because you left us for a few seconds, and I was just a scout.
I mean, like, there was no winning that game. Like, after we, like, dispersed, we were all really frustrated, and it was just, like, we didn't have any amount of regrouping at that point. We were just not interested in the game.
I remember it was like our entire team went downstairs, and I look over at you, and you're like, "Where's our team?" And I'm like, "It's just you and me, buddy." And we just stayed upstairs for a while.
I left at 6 lives. I got almost full, came upstairs, came back down to 6 lives. I didn't see our heavy once, and it was just super
was your heavy?
tilting.
Dylan, he was upstairs trying to fight with us a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was just me and Seth just chilling in our little cubby like, well, I hope no one comes and finds us.
Yeah, you didn't seem to get attacked too much.
Me 2 weeks ago with Josiah.
Ooh.
I really hope he doesn't find me up here.
He did.
No, well, I kind of found him first, and then he saw me find him.
All right, well, I want to get to our topic for tonight.
Skip the rest of the games.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
there's
really-
a lot of games.
I would
There's
love
especially
to skip the rest
one...
of the games.
Yeah, me
let's
too.
skip the rest.
Let's not.
There's not much
Let's
positive
let's
to
skip my commander game, please.
Hey man,
So-
there is positive because one team always wins.
But do they really win in the
We
end?
want to talk about, on the theme of a tournament coming up, constructing a team. Now, you have your good players, you have your good people who can kind of be thrown into any team and do well because they're just kind of playing on their own. But when you have 6 people that play together over and over and over again, what really causes a team to grow and win their games? We got Josiah here, who has captained a few Loveland teams, me, who's captained a few, and Eric, who is our only other Loveland captain, who captained the B team when we had a tournament here. And Joe is a pretty cool guy. AJ,
Thanks.
You're not a cool guy.
I know.
you're a cool girl, and so I think you
Thank
can
you.
provide an extra perspective that isn't male. I'm sure that'll be important.
The female perspective.
I am.
Did you just assume my gender?
A woman's
Yes,
touch,
there we go.
yes.
To kick it off, building a team, and in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you have like, if you put Rusty, Scythe, and like the 6 best players in the world together, if they don't have any kind of synergy, it's not really going to wind up mattering. And this, in my opinion, got shown in the lost chapters of tournaments when we went to Syracuse, and it felt like Baden's team, the Detroit team, the real Detroit team in my opinion, had like what was arguably the best players, but because they were so disenergized and weren't working together well enough, it just never really panned out. So
I'm
Are you talking about Armageddon?
no, that wasn't Armageddon.
Syracuse, when
we
they
were
had
at
their real-
Syracuse when it was Detroit. So there was Clinton Township A and B, then there was the 3 Syracuse teams, us, and then there was the Detroit team.
Can you turn the heat off? It's really hot in here. Thank you.
Oh, you mean
It's
at
not the heat.
Nats 2015?
Yeah, the lost chapters, yes.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they won. I thought
No,
Syracuse
they
had,
lost. They
Do this
lost
to
to
me.
Syracuse.
Syracuse had really good synergy.
Syracuse destroyed them.
Yeah, that's. I wasn't
It
talking
wasn't-
about Syracuse.
Oh,
It
you're
wasn't
talking about
even a
Detroit.
challenge.
Yeah, there
Detroit
we go.
Qs. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. You can. Sorry, you're fine. But
Yeah, they just kind of had the best players they could grab their hands on. But you're right, they didn't have the synergy.
They had Thunder too.
they did. They had, if I remember right, they had Thunder, Jerbear, Baden. They had Micro. They picked up Rachel and Jesse to round out the team.
We don't talk about Jerbear anymore.
We don't talk about Jerbear.
Why not?
He betrayed us.
Why?
He no
Why did
longer
he betray
plays
us?
Laserforce.
He no
Really?
longer plays Laserforce. Is that why he didn't show up to this tournament?
Yeah, he's a freaking deserter.
Sad day.
He didn't even come and say hi.
I know.
Like the food?
Well, I saw him when I went to the members' night on my own.
Traitor.
Yeah.
I'm murking. I'm done with you all.
Wow.
So, let's talk about that team. They had some of the best players in the entire U.S., and they lost to the Syracuse A team.
Oh.
That was Micro, Brew, Scythe, Jesse, Pint Size, and I'm just going to call Death to All Jesse, and Jerbear and Thunder. All
Because
pretty
they-
agreeable people.
Yeah. Well,
Until
until someone decided my nukes are too good for you, and then that was just the end of all the conversations.
it wasn't.
Yeah, what I think happened was Micro was playing their commander, and I think he was trying to play at his own pace,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the team was trying to be on a different pace. And when they needed him to nuke, he wouldn't. And he basically wasn't willing to morph his own play strategy around his team. That's what I saw.
Well, and then ultimately, like, I feel like they almost kind of became slightly toxic towards one another. Like, a lot of them are actually really level-headed and kind people.
Slightly.
But they started having, like, these almost, like, headbutt fights in the middle of games, and it would cause them to almost drop matches. Like, I think we almost took a match off of them because of it, because we were just getting them to tilt at one another in essence. So it was almost like,
We
Detroit.
were
No.
never even close,
were
dude.
we not? I
Every
can't
single
remember.
time we played against them, it was super memey, and they were actually having fun, so there was no chance.
Okay.
Room service.
Don't
Oh
literally
my
me.
god.
Baden literally just bent me over a lawn chair and threw me in the trash. It was just awful.
Yeah. And then he shoved me into foxhole and basically said, "Don't come back out."
You stayed there.
Listen.
yeah, until he decided he was gonna come in and just shoot me.
He's like, if you move, you're gonna get missiled.
Stops breathing.
At the same time, the other team members weren't willing to really work around Micro's aggressive play style. I saw Thunder a lot of times playing a really laid-back scout that would sort of play the midfield, but because of that, he'd waste a lot of time not shooting people. He'd play kind of a safety role. Whereas if he were attacking with Micro and just playing that like aggressive head against wall strategy, just like smacking him over and over, maybe that would have worked a little better.
So what you're saying is they didn't need Thunder. They needed some Slaughtermelon.
This is very
But
true.
we had
That's
Slaughter.
what I was gonna say.
We could have went for a trade here. Like, I would have been open to that already.
I don't think Thunder would have been open to that.
I would take Uncle Leaves in a heartbeat,
He's just
but yeah,
shaking
he
his head.
probably
He's
would
like,
not.
I don't want to play for the Lovelands. I want to win.
It's our ultimate goal, man.
Get good enough that Eves is willing to play with us.
We're slowly climbing up the ladder. We just got pint size.
Yeah, I know. We had Venom and Pint Size. We're going places.
We
going
didn't have
for
Venom
Rusty.
for real.
Going places on 3 wheels?
Yeah, all right. All right.
Literally.
So what about you two, Fear and Hot Tamales? What do you think, like, in our arena is a good way to build a team?
Make sure you have a good 3-shot, especially your commander.
Right.
AKA not me.
In my opinion, the biggest part on our arena is it's not impossible to come back from behind, but in my experience, it's pretty hard to come back from behind in our arena. So in my opinion, having a strong defense is probably the most important part, especially having 2 resupplies that are kind of in sync with each other. Since I haven't been with someone who's more in sync with me from the Loveland tournament that we held whenever it was, like 2015, I think. When Seth and I would resupply for the B team, at this point, Seth and I, like, we don't even have to say who we're shooting. If I'm looking at someone, he'll notice and look at them, and the other way around, where we barely even need to speak when we're resupplying. And I feel like that is one of the biggest parts of a team, because you can have the best team in the world, but if your resupplies can't double correctly, you're going to get slaughtered.
I also think that when you have one thing that's really, really important for your scouts especially is to make sure that they're fast on their feet and able to
Not in their
dodge.
head, though. Only on their feet.
Yes. Also that they're able to dodge missiles so that they have more time out in the field, that they don't have to come back for resupplies, because like we discussed a couple weeks back, scouts need to be able to get information, and so the longer they can stay out and the less they lose lives and shots, then the more that they can get for their team. In terms of 3 shots, I just think that strategy is really, really key, especially for the commander in terms of nukes and missiles and where they're supposed to be and when. And for the heavy, making sure that their resubs are covered by at least someone, even if it's their ammo, being responsible for that, making sure that they just don't leave their resubs open if they're vulnerable. And in terms of resubs, like Feeder just said, just making sure that they're in sync and able to resupply and able to do doubles well, so that time is conserved and that their team gets resupplies and that their resupplies don't die and nobody dies, and so it's okay.
All right, well, I'm going to talk a bit about it. I'm going to talk a bit about how the Loveland team has changed a bit, because I think in our very last tournament, things definitely changed for the better. I don't know if you two would agree, Fear Turkey and Tucker.
No, I was pulling you out of that pit that this is pointless, and so was Fear Turkey. We were like, yeah, it's getting better, don't worry.
Yeah, I was in a pit of we're never going to change, but
Day 2
mostly...
was rough. Day 2 was real rough.
Day 2 was, yeah.
I'm going to be honest. Like, we did beat Syracuse by just over 1,000 points. That was still really close to us taking 5th again. But we didn't lose to Syracuse. We barely got it. We really pulled that victory out of our butts by getting freaking 9K in our final game. And that came from having a lot of moments of depression and sadness and this isn't working, and readjusting ourselves. What I think's happened in previous tournaments is that we get a lot of players who just are newer. It's not any fault of their own, or younger, and they don't really get that they're only one piece of a team. They think that they have the ability to either make the whole game or not have any impact at all. They just think that because they're playing scout or resupply that they have no real say in how the game goes.
They think they can pull a Josiah and put their team in their backpack.
Right.
And
Which is
their
what we like to
little
joke about.
stroller thing, wheel
But-
wagon.
It's not what actually happens ever.
What happened this time is that we just put everyone in their best positions, and we played around with our positions a little bit, and we realized we just needed to go back to our first positions in the first place. All we needed to do was adjust our strategy, which is something we pretty much never did before. We decided, okay, everyone stay in your same positions, but we're going to have everyone play it a little differently, which has never happened and worked before. Every time we've tried to adjust our strategy, no one's really on the same page, and it just keeps falling apart even worse. Unfortunately, Sacramento, that's pretty much what happened. We had our 2 scouts, Caleb and Ryan, and they basically wouldn't take advice as far as how they were going to play their roles differently. I feel sorry for Josiah. He basically would try to tell Ryan to do something different, and he'd be like,
Trust me.
but trust me. And we'd try to sit Caleb down to talk strategy, and he would just like immediately get on his phone. And it's just, we couldn't really do anything about that. But this time we had we had Dr. Feelgood and Memosaurus. And the difference is that even if they were a lot newer than Caleb, they didn't get on their phones. They would sit down and listen whenever we wanted to do something, and they would try it. And eventually we were able to mold our team as one unit until we actually started learning how to play the game properly in that arena. So what I would say is, when you're building a team, you want 6 people that are all going to work together, not let their egos get in the way, and all be on the same page as far as strategy. I'd rather take 5 less skilled players that are going to listen to me than 5 people who are better but are just going to do what they want.
Just real quick, that reminded me of the Loveland tournament where I was B team captain. One of the things that I think is important also is realizing that, I mean, you want to win, but sometimes that goal is not realistic. As for example, as Loveland B, we're pretty certain that we're not going to be able to beat Loveland A and then win. So we took every game as just having fun more than just we're going to win and we're going to go hard and we're going to wreck everyone. So even when we got slaughtered by Australia a couple times, we came out laughing because, well, hey, did you see this happen when he missiled his son, for example? So I think a big part, too, is having people who will not take it super seriously. And I know I reiterate that in these podcasts. If you're not playing for fun, then why are you playing?
Well, it's hard.
Because laser tag is business.
I want to talk
Play
a bit to
proper.
that. The best teams in the world are the ones that do take it super seriously. Now, on one hand, I look at a lot of those teams, and I'll be frank, I'm just like, why are you even here? This doesn't look like you're having any fun at all. And this is supposed to be treated like a real sport, and I get that. But teams just become really tilty at each other. And we didn't take the game off of Armageddon. We had 5 penalties because we're all individually cheating scum. We all got like 1 each.
I'm the cleanest.
But-
Screw you all.
But
I take showers. Leave me alone.
if you take away our penalties, we beat Armageddon one game because they were just disorganized. And they all were playing on different levels, and we were able to just sort of get them into a panic and get a lot of points out of them. So that was one example of where skill didn't necessarily mean that they made a great team.
One thing on that is, like, just generally having a good attitude. There was, like, one time tonight that I got really tilted for, like, maybe 45 seconds at Mason for killing me for my last life when he followed me. But then I took a walk and I got over it. But, like, there are a lot of times where I make mistakes and I'm like, all right, well, for example, tonight I went outside and I asked people and I was like, hey, what could I have done better in this situation? Hey, what can I do better in terms of resupplies that you've noticed? And Mischief gave me some good tips, and I took those tips into consideration and started working on that. And so making sure that you have a good attitude enough to humble yourself to get advice, but also having, like, a good attitude in terms of having fun even when you mess up, and not being too terribly serious about it, but being serious about it enough to not treat it like a joke. So.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
You've been quiet.
I think that if I'm going to construct a team, I'm going to make sure I have an ammo that can give me shots. That's it. That's the team. I need an ammo.
Who's that specifically angled towards?
Nobody.
It's
I just need shots.
It's angled toward Josiah when he put on an
Joe
ammo
gave you a
pack
lot
for
of
each
shots.
teams.
Joe did give me a lot of shots. I like Joe.
So I think the moral of our story here is that if you're going to build a team, put Joe on it.
All right,
That's a win.
podcast over. Let's go. Let's go home.
Joe, you've been quiet.
Yeah. What do you want me to add?
I want you to add what you think a good team construction template is.
The fear turkey with shots.
I was about to say, you and I literally have this problem, Mischief, where we say pretty much the same exact things.
All right.
So,
Well, let me say some. Okay, go ahead.
so the only thing I think I would say, just to reiterate, is that if you have players who are not going to really pay attention, or they want to keep playing it their way, and no one is going to adjust, you're never going to win. Because sometimes you meet a team and you go, wow, they do something incredibly different. You know, they don't play it the way that we're used to. And a great reference of that was at this past tournament, Detroit B was not playing what would be considered standard or meta or whatever the heck you want to call it.
Did enjoy what they were doing.
They did enjoy what they were doing, but they did some of the weirdest stuff we've seen, which was they had 3 strategies in essence, and they said they didn't have any strategies, but they kept doing the same 3 things. And the 3 things were either we're going to take your ramp, so we're going to walk over to your ramp, hide at the bottom, resupply like a couple of times, then we're just going to siege it, and if we win, we take your ramp from you and we'll fight from there. And they had no end game. Or they would play the floor is lava, except instead it's the upstairs is lava, and they would never come upstairs. Or they would play standard, which is what we were used to. So the first time they played we're going to take your ramp, I remember Fear Turkey coming back over and going, I don't know where they are. They're not on red ramp. And I was just like, what do you mean they're not on red ramp? And he was like, I don't know where they are. And actually, that was an interesting one because they had done a different strategy. They had finally broken away, and they built what we called the death wall. And it was a line of 5 of them. Well, not even a line. There were 5 of them standing together. And so Memosaurus and Dr. Feelgood kept bouncing up against that wall, in essence, and losing 5 lives every time because they'd all shoot him together.
Dr. Feelgood didn't come downstairs once. Me and John finally found them. He runs out, takes 5 to the face, gets nuked and missiled twice, and he just dies.
There's a target on your face.
He was so mad after that game.
He walked out, and I saw the message board afterwards, and he was like, I am so tilted about that game. I died in less than 4 minutes because of that.
Surprise.
Yeah.
That was super. That was we still won that game, but that was like, ugh. That was so hard to break the wall. It took so long to farm the first nuke. After that, it was kind of like easy, but the way that they set it up, they had 4 people kneeling down, one of which was their heavy, and then they had their 2 resupplies in the back with a scout. And so every time you would step out to try and tag them, it would just be all of them firing at once. And if you're a one-shot, you go down, and then you lose the initial life, but since they're all tagging you at the same time, all of the shots register at the same time, so you lose 5 lives every single time you walk around the corner. He did it about 3 times, and then he got missiled, and then he just got nuked, and he was just done.
So they set up a firing squad.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like Boston Execution, kind of like...
Which team was I on? I'm like...
That was an ECT. That was
in the
Detroit.
tournament.
Oh, okay.
You're like, I don't remember this.
I was like, wait, what?
I don't remember
Hold
setting
on.
up a firing squad.
What?
I want to use them as an example of a good team because they didn't win a single one of their games during the round robins, I don't think.
And then Jesse quit.
Jesse quit, then Wolfman came in. Now the difference was Wolfman had a really good attitude. He's also a great heavy, but more so, he came into the team, a completely demoralized team, and was like, all right, you're not going to go out like this. I'm going to put you here. He started like moving people around, putting them on the right positions they needed to be on. And they beat the mercenary team, which we had not beaten one single time the entire tournament.
It wasn't even one single time. We couldn't even scratch them. It was just disgusting.
Yeah.
To be fair, Josiah claims that like half of them were cheating scum, but you know.
So here's the thing.
They were mercenaries.
Josiah?
That's what you're saying.
Calling people cheating scum and them not getting caught means that they weren't. So I'm content with the fact that I was getting one-handed by their heavy weapons. However, he only got called for it once. So it doesn't matter. They beat us fair and square, and that's all there is to it.
If you can't beat them, join
Insert
them.
air quotations.
Exactly, I'm murking.
Not like that. I mean, cheat. Get on the penalty train, man. It's fun.
It's fun.
Level in 2015. Join the penalty squad.
We beat Sacramento B. Oh, man. That's an unsportsmanlike.
What else before we wrap this up?
Oh.
Well, I want to say one thing. It's about Joe.
Oh. Why?
Well, another thing you might consider when building a team is the individual people and how they interact with each other. And like Joe was saying, or Eric was saying, some resupplies can get together really well and form a good connection where they can just like tag each other and make things a lot quicker by just tagging the same person at the same time. Same goes with like scouts and 3 shots when they're pairing up. But one cool thing that I didn't expect to get from Joe and working with Joe is that I get kind of tunnel visioned, but Joe's a really loud person. So it really worked out because when he was under fire and needed me back, he's probably the only person that could break through my little mental barrier and get me to focus on him and come back to the resupply area.
Pint Size kept making fun of me because I would squeak on like the 3rd time I'd scream your name. And she'd be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Yes. I'm just stupid and I don't know how to yell properly."
I stopped caring.
Squeak! Yeah.
When I played resupplies for you, you went and did your thing, and I was like, "Luke!" And then you were gone, and I was like, I guess I'll run.
Yeah.
Pull an Eric and hide.
And then you came back and saved my life, and then we lost.
It's hard. When you're the heavy,
In that order.
When you're the heavy, everything's your fault. That's my new
It's
philosophy.
like the jungle. Everything is the jungle's fault.
When you're me and your commander, everything is my fault.
Yeah, try getting a nuke.
I had to. I just couldn't even focus enough to do anything about it because I was running around trying to not die
Then did you
and
really-
trying to find my resupplies that died.
But then did you really have 2 nukes?
I did.
If you have a nuke, but you don't drop it, and no one is affected,
I still had them in my position.
was there really a nuke?
Yes. I could make a political joke about that, but
What-
I'm not going
let's-
If
to.
a tree falls in a forest,
How about we move
Did it
on to
play
whatever
proper?
the wrap up is?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about my commander game anymore.
The wrap up is we're done talking now.
Oh,
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
I'm murking.